Check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3. All right. Okay, hello folks. Today we are stepping into the first day of the final round, the concerto round of the Chopin competition. Now this year, the competition included one more solo piece to be tested among other things. It is the Polonaise-Fantaisie, Opus 61. Now, I hold this piece very dearly to my heart because I happen to find, I shall say, solace in this very piece. I performed it in my 2023 recital in Vancouver at my place. I ended the concert with this work. I'm not saying that I am completely pro at it because I only performed it one time, but I think I have developed a relationship with the piece that certain parts of the work really digs out my sensitivity with sometimes music in general. So for the purpose of the competition, this work also is chosen so that the contestants are able to demonstrate what they understand about Chopin's last style. Now, notice that I didn't say late style. Chopin does have a late style, Sonata number 3, Barcarolle, maybe the Opus 59, Opus 56 Mazurkas, but and also, of course, Opus 62 Nocturnes. But Chopin's last style are most likely manifested in two pieces only. One is the Polonaise-Fantaisie, and the other is actually Mazurka, Opus 68, number 4. Now, the Mazurka piece is much shorter, but both pieces explore the improvisational nature of piano composition. You will be able to tell that the modulation, the frequency of modulation of very wild improvisational thoughts are actually put together as a serious composition. So this is, I think, the important bits of the demonstration from the contestants is whether they can appreciate the last style of Chopin. And it's such a pity that Chopin died at the age of 39, where we don't know the potential of his output after hearing stuff like the Polonaise-Fantaisie and the, of course, the Mazurka Opus 68, number 4. Now, these are not necessarily the last two works he has written, but these seems to be, let's say, the experimental work that he was putting out at the time. He still has some of the late style work composed even after the composition of these two works. So what I'm going to do today, since we only have 4 contestants, I will play along the recordings that we heard today. And I will pause at places because if you want to hear a full, let's say, performance of the work, then you can still go to the Chopin Institute YouTube channel and you can just still listen to it there. What I wanted to do is to comment on what are some of the strength and also weakness of today's players. So let's get to score sharing. So what you will see here today is, now first of all, this is a familiar face. So I would like to tell you that the first person that will play is actually Tianyou Li from China. He was born in 2001, so he is at the age of 24, I guess. Maybe I should really confirm that. No, born in 2004, so I was wrong. So he's at the age of 21. Eric Liu, being the veteran here, he is coming back to us. Eric Liu is 27. And Tian Yao Liu is 16, I believe, 2008. That's right. Yes. And then lastly, Vincent. Vincent is 24. So I would like to mention to you that I rarely, let's say, I try to compare a piece or try to judge the doneness of a piece based on the age of the pianist. But I think in this very work, I will do so. Because this work actually requires a good amount of musical maturity. And this maturity, it actually has to come with time. You cannot just say, I expose myself to Chopin's work every day. I'm sure they do this all the time, before preparing for this competition. But this particular Polonaise-Fantaisie actually require your lifetime on the earth. And we will get into some details of this work as we listen along. So without further ado, let's start with Tianyou Li. So on the left of the screen, you will see the score that will just roll on a basis, and this is free, as in this is from IMSLP, so everything here is okay. Now, on the right hand side, you will see our players. Is this going to be too much stretch? Oh, you don't actually see his faces, so I'm probably going to pull this back. Yeah, I mean, you can just listen, right? You can just listen. And on my left-hand side, I will roll the score, and I will pause at times when I need to. Okay, why don't we start? So I will pause right here, and also at the same time, I will actually try to open this thing 4 times, because what I wanted to do is compare across just the opening of the 4 pianists. Hold on. Eric Liu, and then we have Tian Yao. Start. And then the last one is going to be who? The last one is going to be Vincent. Let him wait for a little bit. Okay. So just a little bit about Tianyou here. Now, if you pay attention to the opening of the score here, it says Allegro maestoso. So majestic. Yes? So now it also says forte at the opening here. Now, does that mean that it's a massive attack? No, it's not an attack. It needs to sound grounded but strong. I'm almost sort of leaning towards a pesante kind of taste, kind of tone quality here. And I think Tianyou did reasonably well. So we can hear him again. Just the opening chord. Just the opening chord. this is good space. A little bit of pedaling issue there. Okay, so now this sort of wraps up the first long phrase of this work, going up to, let's say, measure 6. Okay, now we hear this overarching the drop of the fourth, my sol chord, and then you have this basically the grace notes of groups of 5, and then you swing it by, right? And it's like something effervescing. Fine. These are all very good. So these are 2 features in this work now already. But you do hear a third feature, which is actually not stressed as much in Tianyou's work. However, instead of pointing out what it is, let's go to the next person. So let's hear Eric Liu and see how he does the opening, the effervescing arpeggios, and then a third item that wasn't so clear earlier. Okay, this is Eric Liu. There's one stark difference is how long the first note is played between him and Tianyou. Tianyou was actually quite crisp. Bum bum, right? But Eric Liu is actually a little longer. Bum bum. So in terms of sort of score, see, let's hear it again. Let's hear him again. So bum bum bum. Okay, go here, Tianyou. It's also not too quick. It has a bit of space between the first notes, the first 16th note, and the dotted eighth. But it's shorter than, it's less deliberate than Eric. Now, who's right, who is wrong? It comes down to whether this particular entrance captures the maestoso, let's say, nature. And to me, I would even want it a bit more crisp, as in a bit more clear cut, as in you want this to be a 16th dotted eighth. So Eric absolutely made a choice. I mean, all of them read music, so they know their choices. So this is the first difference that I'm pointing out. But what Eric did a little better is actually with the third introduction of the main theme, in fact. It is actually underneath in the left hand here. So I will take you to... So I'm taking you to measure 4 here. So 3 and 4. So this is played, but listen to what Eric did. So his right hand is actually quieter, and then his left hand stands out a little more. This is actually the first introduction of the main theme. And it's buried as a murmur, but Eric is able to have it stand out just a tiny bit more, just a tiny bit more. Now you should say that the pianos are different because Eric is on Fazioli and then Tianyou is on Steinway, and Steinway tend to have a little bit of a muddy, sort of a raspy, let's say bottom, but Fazioli seems to be clearer. Okay, maybe that's the piano's difference. But you already see that there is some deliberation between Eric and Tianyou. So let's get to the third person. Let's get to the third guy, or girl. Okay, so now we have Tianyou Liu, and let's hear the first. And she is already prepared to go in. Let's hear this. Do you know what I like about this? Is that she actually paid attention to the pedal marking. There was actually no pedal in the third phrase, and then because there's no pedal, it just held notes. The bottom sounds very clear. But you see, this is actually a smaller point. I think the larger point here is how she approaches the first two lines, which, in my opinion, she didn't approach it. All the chords have the top notes voiced, and that's a standard academic trick, academic training. But all of them are, and they're played as if they're just there. So that's what I think is already the stylistic essence of the opening is already missing. Now let's hear the last person, Vincent's own. Okay, man, I love this. I think I love this cross comparison, because from Vincent's point of view, he is the only person among the four who has a very clear cut 16th to dotted eighth. Ba-bum, bum. He actually counted. So not only you heard the drop of the fourth, but you also heard very clearly the connection in the bass line. Bum, bum. We can hear this again. I want to hear this again. It's a little subdued here. The left hand is not that clear. Here. This part. So one thing is clear with Vincent here is he really paid attention to the 16th, the length of the 16th note. Not only in the opening 3 times, so first, second, third measure, but also where they appear. Bum, be bum, ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. As in, he really paid attention to them. So that's actually telling us that he is treating this not only at the beginning as actually a fantasy. I mean, it really sounded like a fantasy to begin with, but it has that Polonaise sort of hint already. So that is something that none of the three here made super clear. I'm not saying that they didn't play the 16th notes, but they didn't make it very clear. We can hear this again. Okay. You see, he pedaled the first. And that created the muddiness. Yeah, he is taking this too lyrical here. Da da dee don da don da don. He has so his 16th note is not uniform everywhere. It's not uniform everywhere. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just pointing out the differences, and I also will tell you my preference at this opening. Now, certainly, we should be able to take everybody's sort of strength and put them together. In fact, that will ruin the piece. It's a very individualized piece. If you combine everybody's strength, it makes no sense. Absolutely no sense, because they have planned something in their head already of what to do here. So as to justify a later choice, it should not be able to justify another person's choice. But in terms of intentions, I absolutely adore what Vincent did here. Vincent is straight up capturing the stylistic element out of the four here. Eric is probably the most personal, because he certainly did not abide by how the 16th to the dotted 8th transition, but he is very deliberate in executing that, so that's his choice. So this is what we have. This is at the moment. This is the current situation. Okay. So let's move on. Let's probably find a place where I will complain more. So why don't we go on? Now, I'm not going to comment more on the details, because the first three bars, even though they're all marked forte, none of them played, so some of them didn't play them at the same forte. In fact, I will tell you that Eric Liu did do it as large forte, intermediate forte, and then a very timid forte. You can hear this again. Eric Liu. Come on, let's go. Up. So he didn't come down as much. It stayed about the same. This one really came down, right? But he's very clear in the left-hand theme here. Let's use Eric Liu and go on. Okay, so this is Eric. I'm not going to comment too much because what Eric did here, I think was quite nice because it was already a contrapuntal framework here, and he brought out each voice very clearly, very clearly. He took some time at let's say at nodal differences, to highlight the nodal differences. There's some appoggiatura actions such as da di da da. So this one is really leaning on the D sharp, for example. Okay, and then he has this little murmuring sort of repetition, don di da da di don di don, as in, sure. I mean, I think that's a nice viewpoint. He really came down from this opening. He really came down from the opening forte. He took the first two as parallel, and then the third one as a reduction. Okay, but let's go on and hear this. Let's hear Tianyou. Okay, so what Tianyou did here, he didn't enunciate as much as Eric. He played forward. He played pretty much forward. What he also did here is, I think his pedaling here is a little weird. I think he pedaled on the first note. That's why it sounded a little muddy down there. But other than that, I think honestly, if I were to say this, I think that's a mistake. To pedal this part altogether. So it sounded muddy because of the chromatism. Okay, but it's a viewpoint. He played through. And he has this nice crescendo that was done here. Eric did it too, but Eric enunciated, and Tianyou did not. But these are just two viewpoints. Let's hear Tianyou here. Okay, so we have Tianyou, who is playing through the same passage, Now, what did you feel? How did you feel? Is it any? Um, this is also quite straightforward, with the only, I would say, time being taken here around this crescendo, which is certainly the highest point in this part of the passage. But other than that, what else is sort of memorable? Now, both are pianissimos, but then here is a piano. I find the previous Tian Yo did this piano very well because he really separated between the pianissimo, and he knows that this is a dynamic lift, not a dynamic level, but a dynamic lift, a small one. I think Tian Yao here remained at the same level over here. There is a wet one, and then there is a dry one of this run that was pretty much all wet for Tian Yo. But I don't know. It doesn't sound menacing enough, because what really is this? This was the opening. This was pretty much the theme, right? Ba 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 bum, ba 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 bum, right? So it doesn't need to be as I just said, which is as I just pronounced, which is a kind of too much of an attack. But it needs to sound a bit more dangerous, because the right hand is not dangerous. The right hand is dum dum bum bum. It's providing a dangerous environment. But what is dangerous? You need a dangerous material there, and at the moment so far, these three folks, I don't think I hear that being captured. Now, turning the page, she is kind of straightforward as Tian Yo, but her top line voicing is very clear. However, I think that's a deficiency. I actually want the meatiness here, but at the same time, I mean, for me, if I were to do this, I played this before, so I know that I do enunciate this very theme. This is one of Chopin's work that the one theme is being repeated multiple times without being boring. And so if it is not boring, then keep enunciating it, because it has such an important part of later material that I think this needs to be said very clearly, like almost beat this in the head of the audience. I recall a moment from the Brahms Third Symphony, Fourth Movement, especially Furtwängler's recording. There was a moment before the opening outburst, before the first outburst moment, there was a bum 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 bum. So I'm not in key, but so basically that part. This was actually taken from the second movement theme. But this part, by this time, everybody must have forgotten like where this is coming from. This just sounds like something being beat, right? So what Furtwängler did is he just played it so slowly, but he made sure that the trombones enunciated the notes. So he forced us to listen. And I think that's what needs to be happening right here. It's as if I'm just dragging you by the shoulder, and I'm looking at you in the eyes, and I'm telling you one word by the next. It's something as serious as that. But different characters. Okay, so let's hear the last. Let's hear Vincent. Pianissimo. Also, lots of movement, but the treble, the soprano line, so da dee da da dee dee da dee da dee da dee dee da, and then earlier too, it was really sung. I think it was really played out. It was played like outright in your face. Now he is a little faster also, so he didn't quite, let's say, enunciate, but I think he achieved the purpose. He achieved the purpose. They're really played out. I think the opening is already a lot of tells. I think a lot of tells. And I am going to say that with sort of, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. But I also mentioned people's age, right? So the first guy, Tian Yo, is 21. Eric is 27. Tian Yao is 16. And then Vincent is 20. Wait, Vincent is 24. Yeah. So this already shows, I think it already shows like the age. Like we have 16, 21, 24, and 27, right? So this is like just all in increasing years of 3 or 4, right? Okay, well, excuse my math. But the idea here is I find the 16-year-old playing things very academically and forward, but without trying to give each, let's say, line a character. As if there's, let's say, there's no leitmotif here, right? There's no leitmotif here, like Wagner. But then the 21-year-old has some understanding of the opening, so it has gotten to the point of being maestoso, right? But he still has just the play-through part, which is also academically correct. And then you have the 24-year-old Vincent here, who I think not only abides by the book, but then also has some of his own takes. And these takes are absolutely valid, that he enunciates, let's say, the top line very well. He differentiates the character, so he notices the leitmotifs, and then he makes sure that they're different, even different tone quality. And then now you have Eric, who is much older, and he probably have gone through the stages of Tian Yao, Tian Yo, and then Vincent. Now he's at 27. He has performed worldwide at large stage, and he has seen a lot. So he is just adding his own condiments. He's just adding his own ingredients. So he probably doesn't care whether let's say this is gonna be Chopin or not, or maybe people are gonna frown about it. He says, this is my viewpoint. Take it, or like if you like it, then continue listening, right? So these are my first few cents about the opening of this. So now we're like 40 minutes through. So why don't we keep this a short one here today, and let's just think about what the opening is trying to highlight here in Chopin's Polonaise-Fantaisie. Everything that's needed in this work actually has been said already. Like almost everything has been said. So this is how important the opening of a work is. Just the first 5% or first 10%. Okay, so we're gonna have a short stream today, and thank you very much for tuning in. And we're gonna come back to this procedure a little more